Hi, I'm James Whitmore. Together, we're stepping out of the present and into history itself. Walk with me through the cities, streets, and moments that shaped our world. This is James Reconstructs History. Welcome to 1600s Rome, a century where time didn't stand still, but rather where stone came alive and moved. Close your eyes and imagine yourself on the banks of the Tiber River, in those narrow streets where the scent of dampness and incense mingle. At the beginning of 1600, Rome was not only the heart of Christianity, but also the world's greatest stage, the Catholic Church. Having recovered from the upheaval of the Protestant Reformation, sought to proclaim its power to the world with the Counter-Reformation. This century's Rome was a city where magnificent basilicas and muddy streets intertwined, where divine hymns echoed with the screams of those executed. Upon entering the city, you are greeted by a massive construction site. For the popes were demolishing and rebuilding every corner to make Rome a capital worthy of God's kingdom on earth. This was the birth pangs of the Baroque era. Now, look up. Those enormous domes and curved facades are no accident. The architecture of the 1600s was a tool of propaganda. Straight lines in architecture were beginning to be considered boring and lifeless. Gian Lorenzo Bernini and his eternal rival Francesco Borromini were in a race to forever change the skyline of Rome. When you go to St. Peter's Square, Bernini's enormous colonnades embrace you like a mother's open arms. This is the church's message, inviting everyone inside. But inside, as in Borromini's San Carlo alla Quattro Fontane church, the walls seem to undulate as if they are breathing. Gold leaf, angel statues hanging from the ceilings, and the play of light are like a preview of paradise for a peasant living at that time. The church uses architecture to say, "This place is so magnificent that there is an unquestionable divine power here." But this splendor comes at a price. Heavy taxes levied on the people, and the wealth of noble families are poured into these marble columns. Politics unfolding behind these colossal buildings is a game of chess based on blood ties. Far removed from modern democracy. Rome in the 1600s was a theocracy. The Pope was not merely a religious leader, but an absolute ruler with an army and lands. However, there was no royal family. Each pope, upon being elected, brought his own family with him. Nepotism, or favoritism based on kinship, was the lifeblood of the system. If you came from a Barberini, a Borghese, or a Pamphile family, Rome was yours. Every corridor in the papal palace was filled with whispers. Which cardinal was pro-Spanish, which was making secret deals with France, determined the fate of the city.
The territories must be clearly defined.
The language of politics was Latin, and the method was intrigue. When a pope died during this period, a brief period of chaos ensued in the city. The dungeons were emptied, and the power vacuum was felt in the streets until a new pope was elected. Power began with the keys in the pope's hand and spread to the furthest corners of the city through the titles he bestowed upon his nephews. But what about the people? Outside the gilded doors of the palaces, the real Rome began. The streets were crowded, noisy, and dangerous. When night fell, survival on the streets without a lantern was a matter of luck. Social life in the 1600s was built on contrasts. On one hand, the nobility's hours-long feasts, on the other, thousands begging for a piece of bread. The public's greatest entertainment was in the squares. Piazza Navona was filled with water in the summer, and the rich cooled off in this artificial lake in their carriages while the poor watched from the sidelines. But the real crowds gathered for executions. Campo de' Fiori was not only a marketplace, but also the place where the Inquisition sealed its authority with blood. The burning of Giordano Bruno here in 1600 is proof of the harshness with which the century began. Crime and punishment were depicted with a sharp contrast of light and shadow, much like in Caravaggio's paintings. At any moment you could witness a duel, a robbery, or a miracle performed by a saint in the streets. Religion was both a source of fear and the only refuge for the people. Towards the end of the century, a crack began to appear amidst these stone buildings and rigid dogmas. When Galileo Galilei turned his telescope to the sky, he shook the world order that Rome represented. When he was forced to kneel and recant his views in Rome in 1633, it was not merely the defeat of a scientist, but a sign of a rupture between the old and the new worlds. While Rome ceased to be the geographical center of the world by the end of the 1600s, it remained a center of art and spirit. This century is the city of the extremes of the human spirit, the deepest piety and the most corrupt depravity, the most refined art and the most savage violence. The image of the eternal city that you see when you walk through Rome today was built on the ambitious, pious and bloody spirit of the 1600s. Rome is a drama trapped in stone, and the 17th century is its most magnificent act.